First Person is produced in cooperation with the Far East Broadcasting Company, who rejoice in the stories of changed lives through the power of Jesus Christ. Learn more at febc.org.
Joey didn't just fall in our lap as a mistake. The question becomes, what are you willing to really embrace?
And actually there are seasons of life that you're going to have to go through that decision to embrace it again.
Today on First Person, a guide to the life you never expected. We'll talk with Joe and Cindi Ferrini about the life of caring for a special needs son. Welcome to First Person. I'm Wayne Shepherd. Our weekly interviews are for the purpose of meeting people who are serving Christ with their lives, even though that calling might include the unexpected. You'll find all of our interviews in the form of a podcast anywhere you find podcasts by searching for First Person with Wayne Shepherd. You're also welcome to visit firstpersoninterview.com to listen to this program. Also, join us at facebook.com/firstpersoninterview, where you can leave comments as you listen to this program. facebook.com/firstpersoninterview. Dr. Joe and Cindi Ferrini are the parents of a now adult special needs son. Retired themselves, they continue to live with their son, Joey, and care for him daily. They've written about the experience in a new book titled The Special Needs Parent, and Joe and Cindi both join me online to share what they've learned. Joe began the conversation.
Well, I want to introduce you to my best buddy. It's my son, Joey. He and I, we spent a lot of time together. And, he's 44 years old. And he has a diagnosis of what's called pachygyria, which is a syndrome that produces symptoms of cerebral palsy, mental retardation, epilepsy, and other things as well. But that kind of is that triunion of symptoms there really is what Joey has. And so it's been a learning experience. I'll just say that for us. And we had no idea what that was. I'll tell you, when we got married, having a special needs child was not on our blueprint.
No.
That for our married life. But that changed radically, of course, that blueprint when we were married 2 years, and he came along, and it just changed our world forever.
Yeah, it did. And just to add to, when we say a diagnosis of mental retardation, the word retarded today is sort of frowned upon, and yet when he was diagnosed, that was his diagnosis. And I do think that the word has a good, I guess connotation would be the word I'm looking for. It has a good connotation to understand who someone is that is mentally retarded. They are slow, and it's a mental lack of capacity that allows for them to be retarded in what they do. And just like music has where you retard and you go slower in something in music. So it doesn't have to be a derogatory word, but I think it has become that because of how people use it, and they use it in a derogatory way. Right. But that was his actual diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And did you mention epilepsy too?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
So for 44 years, you have not been able to leave Joey alone, have you?
No, he's with us 24/7. He, over the years, he's had some phenomenal teachers, medical care workers, things like that. But even right now, Joey is in an adult daycare, if you will, that our local church does Monday through Friday, 9 to 2. And so we're back on a kindergarten schedule again. But we're so blessed to be able to have that facility, and they love Joey, and he loves going as well. And so Joey is not verbal, not very much at all. You would have a difficult time understanding him. But he does express himself.
Yeah.
So he gets his point across.
Yeah. Well, I've met Joey. It's been a few years since I've met him, but he seems like a pleasant fellow, and I'm sure he has his moments. But that's quite a commitment, Cindi. 44 years of not being able to. He's always on your mind and your heart, isn't he?
Yes, that's such a well put comment and question there. That is very true. It is always on our mind. when someone else does care for him, whether it's one of our daughters or my sister, or back in the day with our parents, they're all gone now. But, we always had to be thinking, is he getting his medicine? Is he getting the care he needs? He's always been with people that we totally trust. We would never have him with someone because he wouldn't be able to tell us how was the day, or did you get where you were going when you were supposed to go someplace? So, his verbal skills are so low that his ability to express it would not come out. And so it is something that's always on our mind. Is he being cared for, and is he being cared for safely and properly?
Mm-hmm. We filter everything we do through Joey and his needs, and what we can do, what we can't do. It hinges on Joey's abilities to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. But by God's grace, as Cindi said, we've had wonderful people to be able to help us so that we can do things. And for folks who know us, when you look at our schedule, what we do for ministry, we do a lot of different things. And but the only reason we can do that is because people have kind of stepped up to really, come alongside of us. As that's their ministry, is to take care of Joey. And we're very grateful, for that. But if it wasn't for them, we could not do nearly half the things we do.
I know the two of you are speaking on this topic whenever you have the possibility of an invitation, and perhaps someone listening wants you to come to their church or group and address them. We'll have the information at our program notes, firstpersoninterview.com. But you're in your retirement years. You're still ministering to others, even though you've got a task right there at home. But your motto that I've picked up on is embrace the place. Tell me about embrace the place.
Well, I'll go ahead and start with that one. And I think both of us, just along the way, probably would say when we first got the diagnosis of Joey being special needs, it was very hard to embrace the place, to embrace what we would envision all the way down where we are now into retirement when he was born. It was really something that we hadn't ever thought of, contemplated, planned for. And as Joe said, it wasn't on our blueprints in our marriage. And yet, we looked at other people around us who had, and I'll just say different situations and different decisions in life that they would make. And they had, 3 perfectly fine kids. Everything was, perfect. They looked great. And we would sometimes look at each other and just say, some of those decisions that might have played into this special needs, we didn't make those decisions. So how is it that we have a son like Joey? And there was a situation coming from an opportunity to be with family and things. And I said to Joe, I don't understand, how is it that we have Joey? And he just said, if that other family had him, how would that be for Joey? And that was a moment for me. That moment for me was to embrace the place. I've always embraced Joey. That was never a question. We both loved him immediately. When we found out we were pregnant, we were so excited. That was never an issue. But to embrace the idea of special needs for someone's whole life and to commit to caring for their needs. And, Joey requires a lot of help, but Joey is not medically fragile like some people that we know, whose absolutely every need, right, every food, everything is dependent on someone else. If we make dinner and Joey's, going to sit down with us here at dinner, which is usually every night, he can eat by himself and he can walk. And if we take him someplace, he's generally very polite and will sit and listen. He's good at listening. He doesn't have time on his mind. He's not thinking, oh, I have to be somewhere. He doesn't understand time.
Yeah.
So we could sit with him at a dinner. He could come out to dinner with us and he would be cooperative and quiet generally, unless he's had enough, and then he'll get a little irritated. But, it was really for us to embrace the place of knowing that this was going to be for a lifetime, not just an illness that you get over and a little medication and you're feeling better. This was going to be for a lifetime. And recently, Joe and I were laying in bed, and I think Joey had been up 3 times in the night, and that's not unusual that he gets up because he doesn't have time. Oh, maybe it's morning. I don't know. And so I remember a few weeks back or months back, he said, "Can you believe this is our life?" And I said to her, I said, "No, sometimes it just seems like it's not real."
Even after all these years, huh?
Yeah. It just must be somebody else's life. But I do know that there are people, other couples that we know, whose lives are far more complicated. And yet, no matter what the special need, it's special to that couple or special to that family. And it's their story. It's their story to embrace.
Yeah.
And it's a hard idea to wrap your mind around. But if you don't, I think you'll have a long, long life of bitterness and anger and wondering, why me?
Yeah.
And that was a short-lived period for us.
Well, that was a short-lived period for Cindi. I'll just start with that as well. She engaged right away, and she did exactly what she had to do.
Yeah.
And, but embracing the place is a phrase that is so important to understand, because as Cindi just alluded to, that there are many people who do not embrace that place. They become one of the 85%ers who bail out of their marriage, or they just quit, or whatever. But the difference is that they refuse to modify that blueprint. We hear all kinds of things after all these years, and some of the phrases include things like, "You know what? I didn't sign up for this. I didn't expect this. I don't want this. I don't want this. It messes up my golf game," whatever. I mean, it's just, you hear all kinds of things, and it's just, you kind of shake your head and sadness, but realize that, they're not going to be victorious as a parent in this area of their life. And it requires, an all-in effort of embracing the place. And and actually, there are seasons of life that you're going to have to go through that decision to embrace it, again.
There's more that we'll learn from Dr. Joe and Cindi Ferrini on this edition of First Person, and we'll continue in just a moment.
I'm Ed Cannon of the Far East Broadcasting Company. Did you know that there are billions of people who still haven't heard the gospel? We're doing everything we can to change that by using radio and digital media to give the hope of Jesus to people in hard-to-reach places. In over 50 countries and with 152 languages, FEBC listeners can hear about a loving God, and millions respond. To learn more about FEBC and all that's being done, please visit febc.org. That's febc.org.
My guests are Dr. Joe. Joe is a retired dentist, and his wife, Cindi Ferrini. They are the authors of a new book, The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected. What a descriptive title and subtitle that is. You didn't expect this life, but this is the life you've been living all these years. And Joe, your family consists of more than Joey. You've got 2 adult daughters as well who are doing great in life. And as I said, you are a retired dentist, but the 2 of you minister on this topic to others around the country. But let me ask you, Joe, I'll start again with you. How has this affected your marriage? You're together after all these years and ministering to others, so it's affected it for the good. Describe what that's been like, though.
Yeah. Well, like every marriage has its ups and downs, but I would
watch how you answer this question.
You'll have your chance, Cindi.
Well, I think big picture, you step back far enough, I think what it has done, it has brought us closer together. And because we both had to come to a point of embracing the place where we were at. And as I alluded earlier, Cindi really, she jumped in 100%. And it took me a while to really kind of gravitate towards the center and do that. And that was only because I was struggling with, things that were on my game plan, my blueprint. And, but it came to, probably a crushing reality that, as my son is going through these seizure activities, he's going through these difficult times, I had to step up and say, I have to be the man that my son needs, that my wife needs. And that's a decision that everybody has to make. And it's not something that you can read a book and get that. I like to think that, God intervened at just the right time to, bring me to reality. And I'll just, I'll be transparent. I'll say, as is the case, I would think with most special needs parents or parents in general, and many times you find yourself at that fork in the road. And for me, it was one of those times where, I shook my fist at God and said, how dare you, do this to us? What Cindy was alluding to, we didn't do drugs. We didn't do anything. We did our very best to be as best we could in school and everywhere we went. And so it was, you had a decision. You could shake your fist at God and say, how dare you do this to us? Or you can just say, I accept Joey for who he is and realize that you made him just the way you wanted him. And that's a decision, as simple as that may sound to you. And that was a huge turning point for me.
And that's rock solid thinking too. It's biblical thinking. I appreciate that very much. Cindi, were you hesitant to have other children after Joey's birth?
I wasn't, but this is so interesting because I felt like God would give us what he wanted to give us. And so I guess as naively as we went into having our first child, I went into the second and third ones thinking, they're just going to be fine. But I think what was hard was having made that decision in my thinking, we had gone to a church and in front of us was a family that had 3 grown special needs children. And it really kind of jolted me because I thought, it is possible. It is possible that might happen. And these were not adopted children. These were all, in one family. We have a family in our life that has 2 special needs girls, 100% care in every way. And they have a syndrome. And so they did not know that the first daughter had this syndrome until the second one was already on her way. And they both have very severe medical needs and so forth. So you don't know. You don't know what God is going to bring. The question becomes, what are you willing to really embrace? Yeah. What are you really going to embrace?
Well, is this on the rise? Just looking around in my own life and community, I know people who are in this situation. I think most of us do. Do you see an increase? And are churches responding appropriately?
I would say definitely. When we wrote Unexpected Journey, and this was a number of years ago, I believe the number of special needs was something like 1 in 150 were autistic. Okay. Now I don't have the statistic in front of me, but it is a very high statistic, something like almost 70% higher. So, part of it is that the diagnosis is easier to find now, where we might have just said, even in our growing up, this person may have had autism, but didn't know really how to define it or diagnosis. And we might have just said, they have they're a little quirky in this way or that way. Whereas now you're able to get the diagnosis that helps people who have sensory issues or visual issues. So much more technology and learning has taken place. So I agree with you that it has increased, partly, in fact, due to that we can see it easier now because of what we've learned.
Joe, I know that you recently spoke at a church that has a ministry in this regard. Describe that, and what can churches do to help?
Well, we were so impressed with this church. It's from Houston, Texas, Kingsland Church. And these folks understand the reality of what it takes from birth to high school. And I think that's where sometimes people just don't realize this is a lifetime decision. This is a lifetime situation, and it doesn't change. And this church basically understands that, and they're meeting the needs of these people. And beyond that, they're meeting the needs of the parents of these children. And I think that is where we're seeing our ministry primarily going in that direction. We're recognizing it more as a calling on our life that we didn't recognize as a calling at the time. We saw it as just, this is our responsibility to take care of our child. But now we recognize it as a calling that God has given to us. And, I'd much rather have a calling to baseball or football, something like that. I'm more easy.
Well, by the way, Joey's such a sports fan; he might applaud that as well. Huh?
and thankfully, it's because he is that we connect quite well with sports. I mean, he loves his Ohio State Buckeyes, and
we'll forgive him for that. Oh, go ahead.
He tracks right with them, and he can't wait for Saturday to come around for college game day start. Lord help us if they start losing. So
I have other questions for you, but we're nearly out of time. The questions I have are probably addressed in this new book the two of you have put together, so helpful. The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected. It's available, and we'll put the information at firstpersoninterview.com. But is there any particular passage of Scripture that really has just defined life and kept you going all these years? Either one of you?
Right.
Oh, I love that question. There's a couple of them, but I think one that I really love is Psalm 139:9, and it is, "The Lord will accomplish what concerns me." Joey didn't just fall in our lap as a mistake. Joey was given to us for a purpose. And when I see our daughters and how loving they are, not just to their brother, but one has worked with Down syndrome, improv. One has already today and has had many in the past, a foster child. They love people. And I'd love to be able to think that God purposed that for our life, but not just our life, but for Joey's life and for their life too. So that's one verse that speaks to me. How about you?
Philippians 4:19, is, and my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. And we didn't even know what our needs were. So I think the area where we are focusing more on are the parents, because they all have to come to that fork in the road, and they all have to embrace the place. If we're going to come alongside there and be of any value to them, we need to help them to kind of get through these issues of life.
The helpful book that Joe and Cindi Ferrini have written is called The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected. Anyone who is facing similar circumstances or is helping someone, maybe through your church, would benefit from their wisdom and experience. And we'll have a link to the book at firstpersoninterview.com. When you visit febc.org, you'll be encouraged by the ministry of the Far East Broadcasting Company. With millions of people responding to the gospel messages of FEBC each year, we've documented just a few of the stories of changed lives on the website. It's an amazing thing to know that God is reaching many, some for the first time, with a message of God's love and care. Take a few moments to visit febc.org and see if your heart isn't moved in praise to God. Also, listen for the podcast until all have heard with any podcast app, or go to the website febc.org. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, I'm Wayne Shepherd. Join us next time for First Person.